Oh hi, welcome back to another episode of Record Reviews. I'm your host David Bell, and today we are going to be discussing the 1981 concept album by Electric Light Orchestra, Time. Now, before we start, I just wanted to clarify a few things. First of all, these reviews are strictly my opinion. In fact, I think somebody got upset on a comment that I made last episode, which was I probably wouldn't give an album a 10 out of 10 score. Because, not every album's perfect. And they told me not to review Time if I wasn't going to give it a 10 out of 10 rating. Now, allow me to clarify that I was probably a little too blunt on that comment last episode, because I probably would give an album a 10 out of 10. Even if it does have flaws, I'd be willing to let those flaws slide and give it a perfect rating. Now, on to the album. In 1980, Jeff Lynne collaborated with John Ferrer or something on something called Xanadu, which was a soundtrack that Jeff Lynne wrote half the tracks for. Now, that was a fantastic album on the ELO side, and afterwards he decided to a concept album such as Time would be the next big thing as his project. I did not get enough sleep last night. But Time, for an 80s album, which I'm never a big fan of the 80s, this is actually a fantastic 80s album. This, in my mind, is actually my favorite Electric Light Orchestra album, besides Out of the Blue and A New World Record, and maybe even Zoom. Now, in case you're interested, after the credits, I'm going to be discussing a theory of how every single one of these songs, even the bonus tracks on the CD, how they all link together into one story. So stay after the show if you want to know about that. But let's go ahead and get started. The prologue itself sets a very good stage for the album itself. It sounds watery, it sounds actually quite interesting when you think about it, and then it gets into a melodic piano melody on synthesizers, and of course, the vocoder. It's not an ELO album without a vocoder somewhere. And then we've got Twilight. While it's not my favorite song on the album, I can understand why a lot of people really like it. It's upbeat, it's got synthesizers, it's pretty much the main theme of the entire album. It all links back to that, or does it? Still, this is a very upbeat tune with very good percussion work by drummer Bev Bevan. Now what's interesting about this song is it sounds distorted a lot. Like in the opening, it's all like jumbled and stuff with the 2095 in the background and the distorted vocoder. But then it's also melodic as well because it includes nice string players. In fact, it even gives us an idea of what the album is about. It comes off as really distorted and really crazy, but on the inside, it's actually very melodic and very majestic. Now, before I got this album, I had this CD, Take It to the Moon, which I think is actually kind of a rare CD. It's the very best of ELO Volume 2. I definitely suggest that you pick this up. I think it's a lot better than the first one. And basically, Take It to the Moon, when I looked up what that was, on that album was Take It to the Moon and what was it? The Way Life's Meant to Be. And when I realized that those two were on the same album, which is Time, I called it the Blue Album because both of those songs sort of set a depressing tone, especially Take It to the Moon. But with it has sort of a dark and blue tone to it, so really depressing actually. And I believe this song also resembles Queen in some senses. I swear, I can link Queen to a lot of different songs. But I feel like the harmonies that are featured on a lot of ELO albums really strikes here. The harmonies really smash in right here and give you sort of a Queen feel, much like Sweet is the Night on Out of the Blue, which is a very good song. While it is the saddest, it's also one of the most interesting in terms of lyrics, because I read down here, tears I cry may turn into the rain that gently falls upon your window, you never know. It implies that, well, first of all, this person's going to the moon, and whenever they cry in space, well, what wouldn't be possible is the tears going towards the earth, and then they would be mixed in with the rain that gently falls upon your window. You never know, because they never know if it's tears or rain. So it really makes you think, even though crying in space doesn't work like that. In terms of the meaning behind the way life's meant to be, I'm still very lost. But still, I think that this song finishes setting the stage for the world of 2095. Ivory towers, plastic flowers, obviously a world when plantation is gone and everything's just become bland and gray, since ivory is a basic color. Ivory is white, so white towers and plastic flowers, meaning that the flowers aren't real, and it can only assume that plantation doesn't exist anymore and the world's just become sort of 1984 kind of place, except it takes place in 2095. Maybe this is the world that would have been created like 100 years later had 1984 been a reality. I also wrote down here that that the lyrics imply that this was the place that the protagonist once knew, which is still Earth. And if you've seen Planet of the Apes, then of course the future can seem very different, but they're still on the same planet. So this heavily implies time travel, not transportation to another world. This could be the same city, this could be New York that this person has been living in for years, and then he just suddenly gets transported to what feels like a different world, but in reality it's the same world. So kind of a Planet of the Apes feel there. So while this does seem like a big, sort of like a nice melodic piece, it actually is very important in setting the stage for the 2095 world. Okay, somebody suggested to me, I think it was Pam VA, shout out to you, that Another Heart Breaks was one of the flaws of this album, but I don't see it as a flaw. I actually see it as kind of necessary. Check the theory at the end to find out why. And of course, every ELO album has to have some kind of instrumental piece. I mean, Out of the Blue had The Whale, what was it, Face the Music had Fire on High, and that was it. And even the first ELO album had a lot of instrumental stuff in it, thanks to Roy Wood. So yeah, I'm trying to stay clear of theory territory, but I do feel that Another Heart Breaks is still a big section. Well, not a big section, it's a minor section, but it's still necessary in the story. Rain is Falling sort of has a little bit of evidence of writer's block, which I know a lot of people don't really believe in writer's block, but I do. Because it has sort of like the rain, rain, go away, come again another day sort of thing, which it kind of sort of represents a little less creativity, but then the piano slams in, and it's suddenly one of the best songs on the album. Of course, I'm a sucker for big piano and like big melodic rock pieces such as this, so I think this is one of my favorite songs on this album. There's the harmony, the synthesizers, and of course Jeff Lynne's vocals, which who can't get enough of that? Okay, From the End of the World is probably one of the most interesting parts of the album, because one, it sort of brings back the sort of chilling feel of what was it, Yours Truly 2095. It also sends a sort of weird message. It's like the whole time the protagonist is singing about how he wants to get home to his lover, and then now he's just like fed up with her. Like, you know, you weren't better when I was there, so why should I care now? Sort of thing. I need to listen to the lyrics again, but it's sort of like brainwashing sort of thing, or maybe it's not him at all. See, part of my theory is that the protagonist is not the one singing all these songs. There's different people throughout the album. The Lights Go Down. Oh my god, I love this song. This is easily my favorite song in the album. I just love the whole groove of it, and I love how it's just something that you can walk down the street to. And if this song was featured in a musical, it'd be sort of like the end credits sort of thing, like Jersey Boys, when everyone would like gather together at the end and like sing down the street sort of thing. In fact, that might be why I like this song so much, is because it bears a strong resemblance to December 1963 by The Four Seasons. And let me know what you guys think. Okay, Here is the News is the oddball song, okay? I know you guys might be thinking, okay, Hold On Tight is the oddball song of this album. No, forget about that for a second. This is the oddball song. I had a really tough time fitting this into my theory, and I was able to throw in Hold On Tight, but I'll get to that in a second. But here's the News. This is like one of the low points of the album because I have no idea how it fits into the album at all. Of course, it sounds similar, but I just had a hard time trying to find a way for it to fit into the story somehow. I mean, it's just the News. It's not really much of it. The most I can think of from it is the line, "I want to go home, I want my baby back," and how just like it's intense, like intense to depressing to even more intense. So that's kind of an interesting thought. Okay, 21st Century Man is easily the most beautiful song in this album, alright? Forget Rain is Falling, forget Take It to the Moon, this is the most beautiful song in the album. And supposedly Jeff Lynne wrote this about John Lennon. I don't really see that much of a resemblance there. I feel like this whole album is just a musical through the whole time, and characters like talk to each other in song. This is somebody talking to the protagonist, and then there's like just like muses in the background that provide the harmony and the background vocals, kind of like Little Shop of Horrors. Okay, this is the one. Hold On Tight is basically the song when a lot of people really get confused on what it's really about, or why it's even included on the album. But I see a reason why it's on there. It's like, hold on tight to your dreams. I mean, come on, the whole album is about some guy's dream to get back home to his lost lover. I mean, of course there's going to be a connection there. And I think it's even more confusing if Rock and Roll is King was included on the Secret Messages album, but nobody cares about that. It's all about Hold On Tight on the Time album. But then again, I hate Secret Messages, so can't really blame me for that. And finally we have the Epilogue. This is probably even better than the Prologue since it sort of brings back lines from 21st Century Man, and of course the more intensified melody in the Prologue. And it sort of gives you an idea of how important 21st Century Man really is, as if it's the turning point in the story. Like, think of it in sort of like 2 or 3 acts. 21st Century Man is the turning point in the story. But check back at the theory for that. And that was Time by the ever so amazing Electric Light Orchestra. Easily my favorite album by them, from one of my favorite bands ever. This isn't my favorite album ever. I actually have multiple of those, such as Joe Cocker's With a Little Help from My Friends, which I'm not going to review that. It's too amazing. There's some confusion throughout this album. I think I pieced it apart, and of course the theory really helped me sort of understand this album a lot more. And even though there are some flaws in it, I'm still able to set those differences aside and give this album my very first 10 out of 10. This album is phenomenal. I really suggest that you pick it up. Also pick up just like a lot of ELO albums, like a lot of their classic albums, because the whole band is like really good progressive rock stuff. Once again, check out my Discogs page if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below of, first of all, your feedback on this review. I really want to know what you guys think, and I also want to know what albums you guys want me to review next. Eventually I'm going to be doing a redo of the Fat Possum albums, which is Sun Structures by Temples and Human Ceremony by Sunflower Bean, because I already did those videos, but it screwed everything up and I'm just gonna have to redo them. The next review is going to be Revolver by the Beatles. I cannot wait to rip that one apart because I actually dislike that album. Alright, if you're still interested in hearing my theory of the Time album, stay after the credits and I'm going to be explaining it to you. I have a list of each song, like 3 pages of theory. I'm just gonna like explain to you guys and also provide some extra commentary. But until then, I'm your host David Bell, and have a good night. Cheers.
In a lonely world, such a lonely world. No pictures on an empty wall.
Hey, it's the after credits scene. No, I'm just kidding. This is going to be my theory on ELO's Time and how each one of these songs and the bonus tracks on the CD remastered is linked. I've got 3 pages right here. If you want to, I think you can go on YouTube and find a playlist of all the songs in case you want to listen to it and hear what I have to say at the same time. I'm not going to be playing the music. This is just going to be a whole one take of just spit and spat. So here we go. Prologue, Twilight. An early idea that I had, because the prologue sort of has this like watery feel to it, my first idea was it was purgatory. The protagonist drowned, which would explain the whole water thing. They like drowned in some sort of accident, but further explanation and even some liner notes that I read about it like mentioned time travel a lot, so I thought, well, I'll just go with that. So Prologue / Twilight, a man finds himself in the year 2095. He's ended up in a world that's a desolate wasteland disguised as a utopia. Ivory towers. Basically, it's a big futuristic world. It never rains, and the only population is people taken from several time periods back in time, because no one is able to procreate in the future. He's taken from the year 1981, taken from his sweetheart Julie. So, the only pitfall that I see here is, like, first of all, my idea is that men populate the main Earth and that women populate the moon, and they're, I want to say, like, cryogenically preserved, but I really just don't see why. I just see it as a way for our protagonist to sort of go to the moon, 1, to try to find his wife, and 2, to go to the historical archives to see what exactly happened. So, yeah, I don't know why the women stay on the moon. It's just an idea that I had, so I don't know, take it as you wish. Okay, yours truly, 2095. We're introduced to a side character, the protagonist's sidekick. He's been in the future for so long that he's desperate for love. Second of all, my idea of this is a musical. As a result, he's fallen in love with the robot, but he's even more miserable as it feels not affection back to him. So basically, this sidekick, this friend that the protagonist meets, he's been in the future for so long that he wants love. He misses his wife so much that he befriends a robot, or an IBM as is mentioned in the song, and falls in love with that. And I think this can actually very much help in the story for the characters. The protagonist means they've been there for so long that he thinks that they can help him try to figure out the whole mess. But as a result, they've been there for so long that they're so desperate that they've moved on to robots instead of their wives. So they've forgotten what their wives are like and have just been with robots. This will come back later in From the End of the World. Ticket to the Moon. The protagonist is sent to the moon in order to find the Earth's history, which lies in a databank on the moon. While there, he tries to find out what happened to his wife Julie, but can't find anything. I'm trying to figure out how exactly he gets to the moon, because my idea was that he was a fairly rich man where he came from, so he was able to transfer what money he had back in time. Like, apparently banks still exist, and the money has stayed there in the bank. Like, his savings is still in there, because technically he never died. He was just transported. And I'm guessing that whenever you first go there, they check out who you are, and then they come up with digital, of course, what money you had when you left, and then they bring it back so that you can use it. So my idea is that he was rich enough to buy a ticket for the moon and go there and try to find what happened to his wife. or try to find his wife. I'm still fuzzy on what the moon is for. The way life's meant to be, this is on the moon. In frustration, the protagonist breaks in song about how unfair the future all is, and unknowingly begins a revolution against the masters of time travel. So pretty much, because of this outburst that he has explaining like how people don't complain that they're stuck there. They just see, oh, you can now have a robot that resembles your wife, so you don't need your past life anymore. You can just live how you are. So they just settle for that. But this guy, he's not falling for it. He doesn't want a robot. He wants his wife back. So he unknowingly wake up, people. You're in a dystopia when you're falling in love with robots. And so it sort of starts this revolution against the masters of time travel, which is basically the governors of the world. They control time travel. They bring in whoever they want. Another heart breaks. This is a closer to the first act of Time. The protagonist leaves the moon just before protests begin on the moon. So this is pretty much a montage song of he leaves the moon, he goes back to the earth, but meanwhile on the moon, people start protesting, hey, this isn't fair. We want out of here. And they close off the space ports, I want to call it, to keep those people on the moon, because they don't want that traveling to the earth. They don't want them to travel to the earth either, because if that happened, then the masters of time remain on earth, and so that could lead to catastrophic results. Rain is falling. While staying at the sidekick's home, the protagonist wakes up to see rain outside. As he thinks about it, we find out that the people controlling time travel screwed something wrong while trying to bring people in from the past. Instead of bringing a person, they brought rain. It's the first rain in 10 years since the time traveling began. So the time travel has been going on for 10 years. Somehow they lost rain whenever that happened, and they were able to find a way to bring it back. From the end of the world, violent riots are beginning on the moon, and it's figured out that a revolution started from the protagonist. In a bold move, while he and his friends are sitting in a bar, a gas is released. It manipulates the characters' minds, making them think that their lovers aren't worth going home to because they were horrible people. However, the protagonist's heartbreak leads him to just want to go home and see his family, and it makes him immune to the gas since he already believes he has nobody to go home to. I might change a few things here. Basically, what I feel is, since people have forgotten what their last lovers were like, they've forgotten all the good things about them, and so the gas mainly focuses on them. However, this protagonist hasn't really been there for that long. It's only been like a few days, and he still remembers his wife, he still remembers his family, and basically the gas doesn't make him think that they're not worth going home to. He still wants to see them because he hasn't forgotten about them. However, the people who have forgotten about them are manipulated into thinking that they were bad people. So that's a little change I literally just came up with. Lights go down. This is right afterwards. After leaving the bar, the protagonist begins a stroll down the road, singing about how he needs to go home. He realizes that unless he does something, he's never going to get home. He sees on television that a revolution is slowing down on the moon. The authorities got their batons out and they're taking care of the riots, beating people in the riots. So revolution is sort of slowing down at this point. If he can get to them, he sees on television that a revolution is slowing down on the moon, and the protagonist decides to try and start another revolution on Earth. And the protagonist, so there's easier access to the masters of time travel because they remain on Earth. if he can get to them, they could send him home and end Act 2. These are kind of short acts. So yeah, basically self-explanatory. This guy decides to start a revolution on Earth, and this is how I featured in Here's the News. A year passes, and a team of revolutionists are set up for a large-scale attack on the city. The newscaster is in on it. Alright, the newscaster is one of the revolutionists, and he explains some of the tragedies and a lot of events happening around them. But he finally snaps, because he's supposed to remain in character the whole time, but eventually he snaps, showing how he wants to go home and how he wants his baby back. And basically people are like panicking. It's like, what is he doing? What is he talking about? It's like, what is happening? And he basically encourages people to revolt against it. So the revolution starts too early and the protagonist begins to panic. He packs a briefcase and tries to flee the city. Basically he panics and decides, I don't want a part of this. This is going to go horribly wrong and a lot of us are going to get killed and I do not want this on my head. So he leaves. 21st Century Man. A beggar on the street. Basically the beggar is pretty much the narrator of this whole thing. Okay, a beggar on the street is revealed to be the creator of time travel. After he helped create it, he tried to destroy it. As a result, he ran and hid from the dictators that ruined the once metropolis with excessive use of time travel, i.e. they ended the rain, or they stopped the rain, and like ruined the plantation or whatnot. He explains to the protagonist that he must continue the revolution or else time travel will tear the universe apart and all life everywhere will end. The protagonist decides to go back to the city and help his friends. Basically, this guy says to the protagonist, basically, you're like saying that you're all this, but really you have to be all this. One day you're a hero, next day you're a clown. You're a 21st century man. Pick up your penny in your suitcase. You're not a 21st century man, meaning he has to get back home, but running is not going to help. He's got to help his friends. Alright, one of the bonus tracks is called The Bouncer, which I think is a fantastic song. This is the Revolution's theme. A large riot is led by a large march, I should say. His friends, basically a large group of people, and it's led by this crazy man who was brought from the early 70s during tense Vietnam times when he tried to lead a revolution. Basically, it's history right here. People revolted during Vietnam times, and this guy was brought from that time, so he's a revolutionist in this time now, and he sort of leads these people. Now he's leading the riot, singing lead in the theme, The Bouncer, as they head towards the main Capitol building in the city. Everyone wants to go home, not just to see their friends and family, but to see their lovers again. Men and women, everyone wants to go home. Eventually they bust down the doors and grab the president, which is, basically the president of, like, Earth or something. Like, one of the masters of time travel. They tie him up and tell him that they want to go home. I chose a 1970s, basically, a 1970s revolutionist, because if you actually listen to The Bouncer, the vocals are actually very intense and very strong. So I thought, why not just have some guy who's very intense and very strong, like a revolutionist in Vietnam times, because then it can link, like, he knows what to do. Finally, we have, or just a few songs left, Hold On Tight. The president, who was a 1950s singer before he was brought to the future, because it's sort of like a 50s song, forces the masters of time to stop what they're doing and to send everyone back to the past. They destroy most of the time travel equipment, but make one final portal that can send everyone back to their own time. So, Hold On Tight is basically the president singing, like, you guys is like he's agreeing with the revolutionists. It's like, hold on tight to your dreams. Like, we're gonna get out of here. All right, so he basically orders people to be sent back. Two more songs. Another bonus track was When Time Stood Still. Slowly, with the large blue portal in front of them, everyone eerily moves toward their homes. Gradually, everyone is sent back to their own time with the protagonist in the back of the crowd. He sings as he sees all the people he's got to know get sent back to their own time. They move slowly because they've gotten so used to their own time. Eventually, the protagonist is the only one who hasn't gone through. When Time Stood Still is sort of like a slow song. It's kind of like one of the depressing songs on the album because, you know, when you've remained in a certain time for like many years, you've gotten used to that time. It's like a prison, and sort of like a Shawshank Redemption sort of thing. The outside is now the unknown instead of the inside now. So that's kind of interesting, I thought. Epilogue. The protagonist turns around to see the beggar in the distance. He decides to stay in 2095 and try to rebuild a better future. He, as in the beggar, stays in 2095. When it's finally time to reach the year... What? He decides to stay in 2095 and try to rebuild a better future for when it's time to finally reach the year 2095 and the utopia is remade. Okay, basically, this is kind of like a paradox here. Basically, everyone is being sent back to their own time to live the rest of their lives. So this beggar stays in 2095 and is going to like transport himself back to when this whole fiasco started, and he's going to try to rebuild a better future for when 2095 actually comes. So that 2095 is not a dystopia. He waves slowly as the protagonist goes through the portal. He's blinded by the white light and wakes up in his own home. He looks up to see his wife, Julie, smiles and fade to black. So that is pretty much the whole story that I came up with for ELO's Time. It shows some resemblances to a book I think I read about the other day on Amazon. I think it was called Yours Truly 2095. It shows a few of the time travel elements, but I never read the book. I just read the summary, and it's got some resemblances to my idea, but I think it's actually kind of different. And that's my idea for like a musical, like based off of time, and that would just be the story. I think I tried writing the script a couple of times to no avail because I guess I just have too many ideas and too many plot holes come to mind. But let me know what you guys think of the theory in the comment section below. Let me know of any plot holes you think of, and I will respond to like some sort of way that fixes it, I want to say. Thank you guys anyway for sitting through this. This was a long video. I can feel it. Like, I'm sweating right now. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think of the theory. And, of course, the whole Discogs, request everything. So, yeah, thanks for listening to the theory, and I will see you guys later.